Hey, welcome to our podcast where we talk about clean air and navigating the crazy world of parenting during COVID. I'm Isara,
I'm Lisa.
and we're both just normal parents trying to find our way. So today we are super excited to talk about what's going on with the UN and clean air and Violet Affleck's speech. We're going to talk about some updates on Novavax and get some reactions online to the talk at the UN. So yeah, but at first let's catch up with some stuff. Lisa, how's your week been going?
Oh, it's been going all right. Cleaning up
Yeah.
time, trying to push for indoor air quality and talking to all of the folks who are making the big decisions here in California. How about you, Asara?
Um, I mean, what's kind of top of mind for me is I went into the office yesterday, which I don't typically do, and I wore my Aura respirator, and it was really interesting because one of my people on my team, I know she's been dealing with some cancer stuff. And at one point, I didn't know this, but it was like, I guess every month they celebrate everybody's birthdays that month and they get like cake and everything. So it was like this room with like everybody in there, maybe like, I don't know, 20 something people, pretty small room, pretty poor ventilation. They had to close the door because the guy in the room next to them was like, it's too loud. So they just closed the door. Everybody's eating cake, having a good time, super fun. And I've got I'm the only person wearing like a respirator. I grab my cake and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take off because I can't eat this in this room. Like it's literally like the worst case scenario to take your mask off, right? Um, and so I just kind of like talk to this person next to me, I'm like, I'm gonna take off. It's too much shared air, basically. And she's like, yeah, tell me about it. My chemo meds mean that like it's not good for me. She's not wearing a mask or anything, right? And she's sharp, like she's a sharp lady. And so I'm like, well, let's just talk about it for a minute, like what's going on with you, And so she's on chemo. Her partner, her girlfriend, is a teacher in teaches I think third or fourth grade, and my friend, she's trying to get her partner to wear a mask and stuff, and it's sort of meeting with some sort of success. But yeah, it's like she gets her partner gets sick, and then they can't like see each other until she's better, and it was interesting because I could tell like talking to her, it was like it was in the back of her mind, that like I wonder if I should be doing like either protecting myself or not being here, right? I think like to some degree, as we've been navigating this and talking about it, and I know we kind of have our common interests and our sort of different ones, but like one of the things that I've always been fascinated about when I learned this concept of like sales and marketing is like you never want to sell stuff to people that don't really want your stuff, right? That's not really the strategy. You're not trying to convince people. What you're trying to do is enter into the conversation that they're already like having in their own mind. And is as I've been doing my stuff, whatever, I always think about this, right? And it's just like what's going on in people's minds, and it's so interesting talking to people, having these conversations, going out, and just being, like engaging with people in a non-confrontational way, and just kind of just meeting them where they're at, and just learning about it, and it's like, wow, like she sort of knows. She's not really doing much about it, and I don't know. It's just like I'm not judging anybody. I'm not making anybody wrong. If anything, I'm just sort of like looking at the humanity of it and like self-identifying, like, wow, this is kind of me to some degree. And I think if it wasn't for this community and constantly checking in, my brain would just normalize it. And even knowing what I know, I would move on. And so, like early on in the pandemic, I identified that unless I sort of like keep educating myself about like what's happening, my brain is just gonna do this weird normal brain thing and just be like, "Hey, it's fine. You
Well,
don't
it's no
like don't
different than
even worry about."
anything else. I mean,
Yeah,
like
and
working out, you know what I mean? If you don't
yeah,
have some
it's like
accountability, you're
anything.
not geared towards that. It's like
Yeah.
you're not going to be thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, so it's like one thing to be online, it's one thing to read about this stuff, one thing, but to go out and talk to another human being who, she's got kids, she's a person. I don't know, like these things really get in my head more than anything else when I have real conversations with people out in the wild.
And
So I don't
that's
know.
one of the things I'd like to work on here is like just talking about this stuff and making people realize that they're not alone in thinking these things.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
that
for a
was one
lot
of the
of us,
things. Yeah, and I was like, "Look, like, I told her, I was like, "Look, I kinda nerd out on, like, air filters and stuff, like, we can talk if there's one you could buy for your girlfriend, to put in the classroom, because the school's not gonna," and obviously, that's the whole thing, we want the school to pay for it, that's kinda why we're doing this, but also, if she can afford to do it, and I think just in her talking to me, she doesn't talk to people like this, it's clear that, like, there's not a lot of people in her world, like, really think about this stuff. So yeah, anyway, I just think it's good to talk to people, you know?
yeah, no, I think you got to talk to everybody you can about, just like making stuff normal, right? So like going out
Yeah,
there and if you're wearing a mask and you're the only one there, it's really awkward when you're the only one wearing a mask for the first time. And,
yeah.
there's a lot of people who have a lot of feelings and a lot of trauma around that. I get it. Um, I often just think to myself, part of the issue, I think, is that we haven't talked about this stuff much and that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And at the end of the day, I think we all need to take a step back and sort of say, okay, for people like you and me who are in our 40s and who have little kids, there's this want, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, but there's this want for me to make sure that the world's a good place when my kids are old enough to be adults and to enjoy it. And I look at what my life might look like in 20, 30 years, and I'm like, oh, I've had a good life, right? But for them, I want them to be healthy and happy and enjoy the things that they want to do as adults. And I feel like something that came up this week was this UN segment on indoor air and cleaning the indoor air. And Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner's daughter, Violet, was there. She's an undergrad at Yale, super smart, brilliant young woman. And she was talking about how when she was 14, that's when the pandemic started. She's almost 20 now. And she didn't have any
Crazy.
sort of agency in all of this. And so I think about my kids. I have little kids. And I don't want them to think that I signed them up for something they didn't consent to. And I keep thinking if I if I just read a little bit more and understand a little bit more, at least at the beginning, I thought we'll get ourselves out of this by you know, learning how to protect ourselves. Now I know how to protect myself and my kids. But part of this is like a team activity, right? Like the schools have to care. The schools have to want to do clean indoor air. The grocery store has to want to have clean indoor air because you don't want a situation in which you wear a respirator to avoid getting sick from someone who you're really close in contact with. Um, but then the air in the whole building fails or is not doing what it should do, and you just get sick anyway because your mask leaks or something like that. There's multiple layers we have to kind of as a society consider, and I don't think we've fully considered those or the implications that adding layers or subtracting layers has on the future of our society and of children. And the stakes are very, very high.
We're 5 years in, which means to your point, somebody, you know, like, they to some degree, like, grew up, like, this was all they know at this point, right? And today, we still have the same situation where, like, it's literally very little has changed from like 2019. Like they'll say like the pandemic's over or whatever, but people are still getting like infected in classrooms and bringing it home to their parents, which from what I could tell, like early on was one of like the main vectors of transmission was like school classrooms. And I
Mhm.
honestly, if you wanted to engineer like a worse environment, I don't think it would be physically possible than just a small room with a bunch of kids just climbing over each other, just airborne everything, and you just take that home to your parents. It's wild. And so it's still happening. Like it's still day one for like a lot of people who are just like whatever, have no agency. Maybe they're like 12 years old, 10 years old. They have to go to these classrooms. There is no other options. And it's amazing when you hear these stories of kids that have gotten like disabled or um like injured their parents, or their parents. It's just like you're just like, wow, dude, it's so
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
wild. Like
intense.
I showed up to my little guy, we are looking for preschools for him last year, and I showed up to a bunch of different preschools wearing my mask, and my little guy's wearing his mask, and we made sure everything was well ventilated before we showed up. But they were still wearing masks, right? Because kids are all on top of each other, and you never really know how the ventilation is somewhere until you kind of
Yeah.
test it, and nobody's testing it. So I show up, and this little guy, the cutest little guy I'd seen, besides my own kid, of course. He's like
And
he's
my
pretty fun.
kid, hold on.
Of course, and your kid,
Yeah.
super cute, and he basically was playing along with my kiddo, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Why are you wearing masks?" And then it struck me, actually, a lot of people stopped masking in what, like 2022, and this little guy is like 3 and change or 4, and
Yeah.
like he has no idea. And so I was like, you say this to a 3 or 4 year old whose parents clearly have not got the same opinion about this as I do. And I was like, well, we just don't like getting sick. And this makes sure we don't get sick. And
Yeah.
he just looked at me like, wow, okay. And then he just kept on doing what he was doing, playing with us. And I thought to myself, it doesn't take much. He thought it was a little different. And this now happened to me several times at different preschools. But then the kids just kind of like, okay, that's the way it is, and they move on. And most adults, I think, are like that too, if they're not hung up on it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I just look at what's happening, and I'm like, I think really Violet Affleck put it better than I think I'm putting it right now, which is like, I don't know if you want to flip into that, but to me,
Yeah,
it's
let's let's
wild.
let's let's watch it.
This is the brilliant Violet Affleck. Here we go.
And we are told by leaders across the board that we are the future. But when it comes to the ongoing pandemic, our present is being stolen right in front of our eyes. For adults, the relentless beat of back to normal, ignoring, downplaying, and concealing both the prevalence of airborne transmission and the threat of long COVID, manifested in a series of choices. Young people lacked both real choice in the matter and information about what was being chosen for us. Here's what we know about SARS-CoV-2. It is airborne, floating and lingering in the air. One infection can result in disabling damage to almost every cell in the body, from the brain and heart to the nerves and blood vessels. Every subsequent infection increases the risk of long COVID and places people who already have it in greater danger. Here's what we don't know, is what it does to reinfect children over and over and over again with no endpoint in sight from the day they are born. We are about to find out. As Dr. Akiko Iwasaki says, at this point, the whole population is the control group. And after only 5 years, long COVID has surpassed asthma as the most common chronic illness in children. 5 years. I am terrified for the children who do not or soon will not know a world without debilitating pain and exhaustion, who cannot trust their bodies to play, explore, and imagine, and who will not know the potential of their own minds unfettered by the cognitive damage from a COVID-19 infection. And I am furious on their behalf. It is neglect of the highest order to look children in the eyes and say, we knew how to protect you, and we didn't do it. We have access to a technology to prevent airborne disease, something that millions of our ancestors and millions of people around the world today would kill for, and we refuse to use it. And I shudder to think of where we will be in another 5 years of unmitigated infection and reinfection. Let me say on the topic of generational memory that while I imagine no one in this room was alive in the time of Jon Snow or Ignaz Semmelweis, many of you fought the long and hard battle against indoor smoking. My only memory of that era, at almost 20 years old, is being confused as a child about the no smoking signs on planes. Who would do that? That's gross. My hope for this event and my belief in this community rest on the belief that we can and we must do that again. We can recognize filtered air as a human right as intuitively as we do filtered water. We can create clean air infrastructure that is so ubiquitous and so obviously necessary, tomorrow's children don't even know why we need it. We need the people who remember 2020, who were not like me, 14 in 2020, to be loud
Yeah.
about the world that we were promised at the onset of the pandemic, when where we and our institutions promised each other that if we only got out of that desperate acute phase, we would do everything we could to protect our communities going forward. And we need the people who are born now, we owe it to the people who are born now that they take that world for granted. Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
Right?
It's
I
just
mean,
like she pulled
brilliant
no
woman.
punches, dude. Holy
So,
shit.
if I may, like, can I just say,
Go. You
I
go
mean,
first.
she is just off the charts awesome. Like, this is what I want my girls to grow up to be like. And I think Ben and Jennifer, like, I can't even imagine being a Hollywood parent and putting all of my eggs in the I have to be a great actor and look good basket, and then having a kid who's just so freaking brilliant, and yet is willing to wear a mask, which is, we all know, not the best fashion statement, but like she's off the charts smart. And she's doing this in like circles that that really care about looks, and I think, like, you know what? DGAF, girl, like, go for it. And I think you protect your health. That's the number one thing. And you fight for something that you believe in, and you fight hard. So yeah, she's just off the charts amazing. Also love the canary pin, because all these kids are canaries in
Mm,
coal mines.
that's crazy.
It's a freaking lootly wild. Show me where I can get one of those pins. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack, honestly. I think the, I'm always conflicted with like the youth advocate like label at like the UN. It's such like it's so, I think, well intentioned, but also like condescending, um, too. And like they have, it's just the nature of like consultants is like they're just there to be completely disregarded, but it's like a checkbox for so many people, right? I do like though that she takes the opportunity, like Greta did, to speak truth to power. And you know, in looking at Greta as like a precedent, you know, one of the things that I always found amazing, I always pay attention to like the detractors, a lot. I'm just curious what how they make sense of it. And when I was listening to the detractors of Greta doing her UN speech, they were just like basically mocking everything except the content of what she's talking about. And I'm reading the comments on X here too because I'm curious and I want to know what, like, the quote unquote other side thinks. And it's sort of the same thing. Like nobody's addressing anything of substance in what she's saying, not a single thing. So that's kind of one thing that I think about. The other two, the like another point is, having her parents be such like not just like celebrities, but really like royalty level, like American royalty level celebrities, like A-listers who are, at this point, there's enough anecdotal stories of people in Hollywood getting COVID and essentially either severely impacting their careers or like ending their careers, and so looking at these photos of like Taylor Swift, and you look in the background and everybody's wearing a respirator on her whole crew, so I'm just really curious, like what are the conversations like at their household over dinner, like what is going on there, like are they like, go for it girl, we just can't publicly in any way support you with our immense gigantic super platforms, like what is going on, right? Like I've nothing seen nothing from Ben being like, hey, I'm super proud of my daughter, or like from Jennifer being like, I'm super proud of my daughter. They're just like ignoring her entirely. So is it a situation like
I don't
one
know
of
that
my
they're ignoring her
friends?
entirely, but I will say that it does seem that, like, that they're not out there in front of it.
I
But
mean,
I have
dude,
heard
like,
previously when she wrote the piece that she wrote that just got such great, it was excellent piece
yeah,
she wrote for the Public Health Journal, EL, I think it was. Anyway,
yeah,
she wrote an awesome piece, and I think I read somewhere, and who knows if any of this is true, that her parents just sort of gave her a heads up, like, hey, you might want to make sure that this is like a cause you want to fight for. There's a lot of causes to fight for in this world. I
yeah.
personally align very highly with what she has said, which is that this is neglect at the highest order, that we are not protecting these children against something that we now know is absolutely going to screw them up.
Well,
I mean, at some point,
here's
it's going to screw them up.
here's the thing that just lights me up, and just to get into the substance for a minute, this is indistinguishable from Greta's speech to the UN, where yeah, like basically, like it's almost word for word. Like you tell us we're the future. You have failed us. Your words are not in alignment with your actions. You know, and I think like to me, like that's one of the things that's motivated me so much about working with like youth movement stuff. With climate change, and now this is like that is such a brutal argument. It's so brutal to be for somebody to like somebody who's young, let's call them whatever, under 18 or something, to force upon them the reality that everybody who said we care about you, we're going to protect you, and you look at what they actually did, and they did nothing, or even worse than that. knowingly forced you to go or to this environment where you could get sick, make your parents sick, or even if they didn't know, it was their jobs to know,
Yep.
you know? And so to me, that is really very dark, very, very dark and dystopian that we force this upon people. We, on one hand, we tell them, "You're our future, you're everything, you're our wealth, you're go and do it." And then on the other hand, we're like literally can't be bothered to do the tiniest shred of thing to spend the 4 calories that it would take, to just authorize a budget or just put free respirators or just like spend like that dude that I was yelling at on X and then apologized for because I was disproportionate. But like he was like his job. I don't want to flame his profile, but like his job was basically he was older. He was like in his 50s or something. His job was to like mentor and counsel like high school kids or something. And then he was like saying like you don't need to mask. And I was basically like, dude, you had 4 years of science to do 20 minutes worth of homework. Like how much homework have you assigned to kids in that amount of time? It's your job. And at a certain point, like you just sure as an adult you can have a wake up call like and be like, and I mean as a parent I feel like you're sort of having hopefully minor versions of these all the time and being like, oh my god, like what was I thinking? I'm a moron. I'm going to course correct, clean it up, make do the best of it I can, and that's just part of like life. But I also feel like I really appreciate the outrage. Like I don't think the tone should be civil coming from kids, and this is one of the things we've talked about of like in terms of like what is the leverage to get the legislation, and to get all these things passed, and how I sort of my philosophy is like the carrot and the stick is really like activated angry youth movements like this. This is what it looks like no
Yeah. Well,
bullshit.
I mean, here's
This
the
is what you
thing.
did. We know you did it.
So the UN and the WHO have both said that clean air is a fundamental human right. Both of them have said this, right? Has that been enacted at all into our legislation anywhere in America? No. And I will tell you something fascinating. So there are two legislators, Paul Tonko and Brian Fitzpatrick in the House, who are trying to push for bipartisan legislation to clean up the air in schools. And so
Sorry, is,
I
is that state or
Oh, federal. Federal,
national?
like
Okay.
both house. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So both of these guys, Tonko, a Democrat, Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican, tried to push this indoor air quality legislation last year and couldn't get bipartisan support, which is wild. Absolutely wild to me. After the UN and the who I know we don't follow anymore for political reasons, both said it's really smart to clean the air and it's a fundamental human right, right? So in America, we believe that the fundamental human right is to education, and to like a lot of things, right? Like why not the air we breathe? It's just bizarre. So these guys tried to push forward the Clean Indoor Air in Schools Act last legislative period, and it didn't get bipartisan support. So now they're starting it again. So I
Hmm.
asked them to send me the legislation, and we can talk about this all a later time. But what was fascinating to me was it's talking about stuff, and it's pretty all right, but like it doesn't talk about trying to stop the spread of illnesses in school. And it doesn't talk about keeping the CO2 levels low enough. So it sort of seems like this big watered down mess. Now, let me tell you that in California, we have public health that also cares about indoor air quality. And our indoor air quality recommendations for schools are the most progressive in the country, as far as I can tell. And yet,
Hmm.
are schools following those? Do those have any teeth? Absolutely not. So, to Violet Affleck, I say, keep it up. Like, keep talking about this stuff. I'm super angry at what's happening here. And yeah, get a little testy because the UN tried to be nice about it. Who has tried to be nice about it? And I'm done. It's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing. I have like a friend whose kid, mysteriously after an illness that wasn't COVID, ended up with celiac. Now I know that celiac can happen just genetically, right? But from what her doctor explained is that there's typically some sort of genetic component and also a viral trigger.
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah.
I just keep thinking this kid did not have celiac manifesting itself in a very uncomfortable way before she had this illness. Wild, right? I don't care if it was COVID or something else. having
Right. I
is
mean,
in
that's
the
the thing is
classroom.
like viral triggers are a thing.
Yeah.
We could reduce that because we've all agreed that that's generally bad, you know?
So why
Yeah.
are we sitting here knowing that like CDPH, California Department of Public Health, says that you should have around 2 times building code as your minimum threshold for indoor air quality in a school? That's 30 cubic feet per minute per person of clean indoor air. And they also aligned it with, or the CDC's 5 air changes an hour, whichever is higher. So they had to align federally because they couldn't do something that was like too high. So it's all very political. But I look at this and I think, okay, great. So now we know what the numbers are. We know what the schools are supposed to do. And yet I try to donate a portable air purifier to my kid's prospective classroom, and the answer is no. We have CO2 monitors in California schools. We are supposed to be able to understand that CO2 in the air is not good for us. It messes up cognition and makes it so that you get tired if it gets too high. So in schools, we should know what the CO2 is. Well, the CO2 limits that those air monitors are doing in classrooms is 1,100 parts per million, according to CalShape and the Title 24 legislation that passed, which is building code. California Department of Public Health recommends 800 parts per million CO2. So you're talking a huge delta between what is actually recommended for health and what building code mandates must be done legally. And there in between is just goodwill, right? Like, are you going to a school that has goodwill, or are you going to a school that thinks they might get sued if they don't do something the same way for every single classroom and every single kid? It's wild.
I mean, here's the thing that just drives me bonkers about all this is like we're just, begging for crumbs. And California is one of like, if it was its own country, it'd be one of the top 5 richest countries on the planet,
Fourth largest
and
economy in the world.
yeah, and we have like tech here, we've got like everything that's badass, and we're just fighting for like basically the lowest common denominator when we should be world leaders in the space for our kids, and we should have state of the art, high, like even stupid high standards. Who cares? Who cares if there's more air changes per hour, and it's quiet, and just providing the infrastructure in the CO2 monitor. It's just like it blows my mind that like everybody's just fighting to do the absolute least for these kids. I will say, going back to like Violet, and then let's play the clips of the Boston stuff because I think it's like really cool. Um, is that you know on one hand, I've read maybe too much Frank Herbert, and the whole Dune series is basically how you should not like uh you should not like have leaders that are like that you put all of your faith into because they're just people and will like either turn on you or disappoint you or whatever, right? Like that's like you have to read the rest of the Dune books to get that point. It's not the point in the first one. But having spent enough time, like I sort of hope that Violet is able to, or has the desire, she certainly has the means, at least the desire to sort of like build a platform of kids. Like that's what Greta did when she started Fridays for Future. She basically like very bottom up built this whole thing of this global network of youth, that basically created a huge activist engine, around the specific topic of like climate change. And it was like youth climate activism. I really hope Violet has the people and just the desire to not just do like a one-off talk at the UN and be like, that's cool, but like really build something significant that can do a lot of like active demonstrations. I mean, personally, I know we disagree, but I would love to see some school shutdowns where like, because where kids, like I'm talking like young kids, not even high school kids, but whatever, are just like, look, we're not going to go to school until you handle this. So good luck, you know? And what the crazy thing is like, when kids realize that they can't get fired, basically, like all like you can't put them in jail for not going like for doing a protest, like that the stakes for them are so low compared to an adult who can get fired and like you lose your health
Immense.
insurance and your livelihood and like all this stuff. Like it's high stakes for adults like a lot of the time, right? And so when like I've got some people that did some serious tech activism at like Amazon, and they were like retaliated against. It was like hardcore. That's not true if you're in middle school or high school, by the way. Like, if you're watching this, you can do stuff and they can't do anything to you. Like, sure,
Yeah.
you don't have rights. Like, yes, you don't have like the constitutional rights. It's like an insane rabbit hole, but they cannot
You can just
touch
do
you.
things.
They cannot do the things to you that they can do to adults. And so kids can shut down a school until they're like, look, here's our demands. We want clean air that meets these standards. We want like CO2 monitors. And until you do that, we're not going to be in these death trap ass classrooms with your crappy ass air. Good luck. Figure it out. It's on you. It's your job. Do your stupid job. And they can do that. So I'm that to me, that's like, let's go. I know you're not so like on board with that, but I think
Oh
that's
no, I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is like let's ask nicely, and then if it doesn't happen, then let's start getting a little louder. And right now, I'm ready
yeah.
to get loud. I mean, I'm super annoyed. I know a mom who showed up to a San Francisco parents meeting wearing a shirt that said "Ask me about clean indoor air at schools," and
Yes, this story's crazy.
she basically got
Yeah,
pushed out. And I was like,
they
huh,
kicked her out.
yeah. I mean,
You told me the
basically,
story, and like people got like hostile, and like
people were
it
getting
was.
weird.
But
This lovely lady who you're seeing
let's watch
here.
her. What's her name? Do you know her
So
name?
Catherine Walsh, I think is her name, and she
Okay.
is just this woman I've been hearing about for like 3 years now. She's just
Yeah.
a baller and she's brilliant. And she is the woman who's basically the program manager behind all of the stuff that happened at the Boston schools. If you have a chance to watch the whole thing, you should do so. I think this is part of it at the UN, where she talks about how in Boston, by the way, as a Boston College alumni, go Eagles, the whole Boston area is fantastic because there are just so many universities, Boston College, Boston University, Harvard, Northeastern,
Yeah.
like all these huge universities, like dozens of these things, right? So you have smart people there who have smart
MIT.
kids. MIT, how did I forget MIT? Anyway, you've got all these brilliant people, some of the top universities in the world, all in one place. And so Boston schools really have to make sure that things go right.
Okay, so
The
riddle
air
me this:
quality,
we're in the Bay freaking area.
right?
Like, what's the
Let's talk.
difference? Riddle me this,
Well,
Lisa. Like,
okay,
you lived in
we got to
both.
talk. Sarah, this is true. Let me just tell you also just one small anecdote before I hit Boston schools. Boston schools are different than Newton, Massachusetts schools. Newton is where Rochelle Walensky, former CDC director, and Ashish Jha, former COVID czar, had their kids in school and may still have their kids in school. Not really sure at this point. But those schools did like a bajillion-dollar upgrades to increase the air quality in those schools amidst the ongoing uh, early part of the ongoing COVID pandemic. And so they also did well. So you've got Newton, which is a very affluent suburb, home of Boston College, just outside
Hmm.
of Boston. And you've got Boston Schools, which is a district unto itself. And right now, as a parent or as a member of the public, all you have to do is go onto the Boston Schools website for indoor air quality, and you can see the indoor air quality in any classroom you want in that whole district. And I will leave it
That's
to Catherine.
insane.
It's
That is
wild.
so dope.
We've found issues with HVAC equipment, such as malfunctioning air handling units, closed dampers, or broken vents, and been able to repair those with our investments and our amazing team at Boston. We've been able to educate the community about behaviors that they can take in their classrooms to either improve, or harm the air quality. We've also been able to prioritize HVAC upgrades and IAQ-centered design in our capital projects and our major renovations, so that now we are balancing IAQ with energy efficiency rather than sacrificing IAQ for energy savings. One of the greatest outcomes of this program, though, has been our incredible research partnership with Boston University School of Public Health, led by the amazing Dr. Patricia Fabian and her team of students.
I would just like to say that this woman hit it right from the beginning. Boston Schools takes this stuff seriously. Why we are not doing this in the Bay Area is just freaking wild. We've got this amazing scientist, Caltech guy named Shri, whose last name I'm totally going to bludgeon, but you can find him on X. Brilliant guy, inventor of the safe box, which is basically a box that you strap to the back of a portable air fan that you can stick in your house or in a school or whatever. And these safe boxes can actually generate more clean air flow than anything commercially available. You've got Liesl McConchie, you've got
Insane.
who's a Corsi Rosenthal Foundation interim director or head or whatever, and you've got Richard Corsi, you've got Kim Prather, you've got all these amazing people in California who are screaming from the rooftops about we need clean indoor air. And we got the CDPH, who is absolutely rocking right now with their recommendations. I mean, really phenomenal. And they all know, all of these people know that what we are doing to children right now is criminal or should be, right? And yet, every school in California is supposed to have a, uh, if they've remodeled recently, is supposed to have an indoor air quality monitor um, that tells you
Yeah.
what level of CO2 is building up in the air in the classroom. They were supposed to alarm at 1100. Why 1100? Like why? 800 is the
Yeah.
number. Like you want it to go no higher than 800, according to all the research I've read. Anyway, I digress.
No, totally. I mean, I look, there's two things that I love about that clip and the rest of the clips that you did. I think that the first thing is just the content. Like I'm just like, wow, like they did the thing and they made it look easy and they just did it and they didn't like fight everybody every single inch, like kicking and screaming, they just did the thing. I mean, who knows what the backstory was, right? But like it could have been whatever. But the other thing that I love too is just her demeanor. Like it's clear like this is could be just what it takes is people like that who you're like, oh, don't mess with this person, she's gonna like do the thing, like you get the sense that it didn't happen because people were nice, and that's what I kind of like is, I mean, sure, you trap more bees with honey, but like also like we're talking about some pretty serious stuff, and it was clear that like she's she's into it, and she got results. So I just like people like that. There I'm just like, okay, you're like a warrior, you're like a fighter. So I just liked, I don't know. I hope I get a meter at some point. Maybe,
Yeah, well,
maybe
here's
we
the thing
we
is that
can
you
talk
mess
to
with
her
kids.
on the
I'm a
podcast,
generally nice person, but if you mess with
Yeah.
kids, you mess with
Yeah.
my kids, you start trying to F with my kids' future, F you.
No, dude.
I got no
Nice is
time for
gone.
that. I got zero time for that. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, in California, I have contacted many a legislator. And it's been fascinating because these phone calls go something like this. I get this like intern on the phone and I start talking to them about what's happening and why they should be concerned. And their eyes and ears are completely opened. And they're like, holy God, I had no idea. This sounds
You
horrible.
just scare the shit out of them in like
Yeah,
three
totally. You're
minutes.
like, oh my God.
Yeah. I want to get to Novavax really quick, if that's
Yeah.
okay. And I just want to put in my caveat here, which is obviously this is not medical advice. I'm a moron. Don't listen to anything I say medically. Two, my personal stance is I'm generally more agnostic on vaccines than most people would like me to be. And my only defense is, again, I'm a moron and I don't understand the science, and I also don't trust a lot of the people. But I will say, and this is just me personally, and nobody should do what I do, it seems like, having looked into it, Novavax is sort of you can think of it as the least worst or the possibly the best, in that there's fewer side effects and it seems to have better efficacy. And sort of the backstory is it's really hard to get. So sorry for the scarcity trigger that just going to freak everybody out. They're going to start panicking. But basically, I'm in some still COVIDing groups, and there's been some updates, and it's weird for me to talk about this honestly because I'm not like I don't talk about vaccines. I really don't. And we can talk about as much as we want on our show, Lisa. But I personally I just don't talk about it. It's not my thing because I'm a moron. I don't know. We can have people on, fine. But so okay, that's my spiel. So I was on
Just
X.
PS, I will also say I'm not a doctor, but I did volunteer for Protect Their Future, which I think is an amazing organization trying to
Yeah,
trying to ensure vaccine equity for children who want it.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I believe in vaccines, but they're not perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect. That is why we
yeah,
take a layered approach to trying to stay healthy.
yeah.
And that is why
Okay,
clean
cool.
air is
So
all important. We should all agree. Whether you like vaccines or you hate vaccines, we should all be able to agree that choking on nasty air, full of smoke, full
a
of
hundred a
virus,
hundred
whatever,
percent.
not what I want to be doing and shouldn't be what anyone really wants to be doing.
100%. So I do this in the service of like other people that are like kind of like freaking out a bit. So I literally can't believe I'm the person that's giving updates on vaccines. This is hilarious. If you know me, but I'm actually kind of pumped about this because I actually do want the Novavax vaccine. And I'll be transparent. I've not gotten all the vaccines. I've not been like religious about this at all. So I'm like, dude, I'm some weird thing. But okay, so Costco finally has added Novavax to the vaccine page. Coming soon. Please check back. So this is if you have a Costco membership, this is something you can follow up on. I have a Costco membership, so this is one of like the 5 things I'm going to be following up on. The other thing too that I came across, and there's just more news, and I just one of the 500 topics that I follow. So I'm just kind of sharing this because I know for some people this is important. This person said last year found out that CVS has an internal inventory system that allows local stores to check for Novavax at other locations. So if they tell you they're not going to have it at that store, the least they can do is check to see if other stores have it. I thought that was really, really cool. So also, I'm going to share because I'm in a signal group with where the town that I live in with some coding people. Walmart is also potentially stocking it. It looks like they have some near me in the Bay Area, so I can call around. So, because what's been happening, I don't know if you like follow this that much, Lisa, is like it's
Yeah.
basically like, and I'm gonna just butcher the whole thing, but it's like a lot of people want it and they're having a hard time getting it out and getting it in the stores, and then all this weird funding stuff that I haven't been paying that much attention to. But the sort of the TLDR is they're releasing some of it now. So it's like end of December if you're watching this. Um it's coming out, and so those are some places you can check. So I just wanted to have that quick
No,
conversation.
awesome. I mean, here's the thing. Like I had Pfizer first, then I had Moderna.
Okay.
I think I had another couple more. Anyway, I had like a million. I've had a million vaccines. Still alive, still doing fine. I had the most horrific hangover from both Pfizer and Moderna that I have had in my life, and that is saying something because I did my junior year abroad in England. I did my master's
Yeah, I
degree
was
in England.
I was gonna
Those
ask
people
how
know how
how
to
how
drink.
hard you party. Okay.
I am very capable of holding my own. Probably not anymore now because I do have 3 children. But I mean, generally
You're
speaking,
competitive. You're
I am a
competitive
business
is what you're
developer.
saying.
I know how to go to a
Okay.
party and have a great time in my
So this
youth.
means something coming from you.
So just take it for what it's worth. I am
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
doctor. I am not offering medical advice, but I had these vaccines, and each day that I had it, the first time my husband and I had it like this roughly the same time, and we both just were like knocked out, like just miserable
Wow.
for days. And then we both agreed the next time we were not going to do it at the same time because that was rough.
Right.
And I
Oh
never
yeah.
had a
Yeah.
vaccine like that in my life. Miserable experience, hangover, all worth it because, I just in case I had gotten COVID, I would have been protected more than not.
Yeah.
Then I heard about Novavax. I took Novavax. Like I didn't feel anything. Like it hurt. My arm hurt. I had maybe a little tiredness the next day. Nothing.
I don't think I had anything. I think like literally maybe a tiny bit of arm soreness, and I was like kind of like waiting, like is it gonna hit me in 2 days or 3 days? And then I was just like, I guess literally, I was like, is this thing even real? Is this a placebo? Like,
Right,
what did they give
exactly.
me?
And then I had read a lot about it, and I had kind of concluded, and again, not a medical doctor here, but I had concluded that it seemed as though there was longer protection, and I thought, better for me. I
And
really would like
broader too, I think,
broader, and I would really
from the
like to.
variants. One last thought about Novavax. Sorry, I just realized, in case you're watching this and you're a parent, because we do focus on a lot of, we're both parents, so we obviously talk a lot about parenting stuff. They do not make Novavax for kids. There's no kids dose.
Yeah, but they have it.
Um,
The kids dose is available in Japan, and this is my
Shut
beef.
up. If
They
we fly to Japan, I can get a kid's dose for my son of Novavax.
I I can't speak to what they can do for a 3-year-old, but I know that I think it's 6 plus. I'm not 100% sure,
Six
but they can
plus.
get it.
Okay.
I bet they can do it for older kids. And I know a lot of people in America on these like so coveting
Are you
forums have been
freaking
asking like
kidding me?
the dose is the same. Can we just like get someone to prescribe it off label? And I have not seen a good answer
Right.
to that. I don't know. In
Yeah.
Germany, uh, at the beginning of this whole thing, before the US was allowing vaccination for children, people were actually flying to Germany and getting
Oh my
vaccinated.
God.
Really rich people were flying to Germany and getting vaccinated, getting their children vaccinated by like some back alley thing because it was totally legal in Germany. This whole vaccine thing, speaking of, has been kind of challenging, obviously, for everyone who actually wants to get vaccinated, less so for the people who really don't care or don't like vaccines. Um, and so this national situation at the HHS is absolutely dire, honestly. the lack of scientific rigor in which people are living is just absolutely shocking. Yesterday's press conference around autism
Yeah.
Tylenol
I
being a whole
I
different
I thought
ballgame, which
we I thought you would have some thoughts about
I
that.
have some thoughts. We could talk about that another time. But what I will say is just like, I mean, this discourse is absolutely wild. It's just so ridiculous. And so I'm really thankful to Governor Gavin Newsom, plug,
Hmm.
for having the West Coast Health Alliance, which I think is really great. But here's the thing I don't understand, right? So the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, California, and now Hawaii have all bound together, forming this West Coast Health Alliance, which is great.
Yeah.
The science is there. The people really seem to like want to do stuff to make life better for all of us vaccine wise. And Gavin Newsom's office keeps talking about how we really have health at the top of our priority list. And yet, there is absolutely no teeth on the indoor air quality guidance that CDPH puts out. And like, this boggles my mind because as
Yeah.
much as I know that vaccines are helpful, they're not the only solution here, and they're part of a larger solution. Being in a place that has clean indoor air is absolutely critical. Even once you're in that place with clean indoor air. And in California, this is not just about like viruses, right? This is about wildfire smoke and toxicity of the air around like pollution events. We fortunately this season have not had like a really bad wildfire smoke season. I'm knocking on
No, I
my
mean
head.
we just did the same
But
thing.
yeah, I mean, thank God we haven't had that yet. But I mean, this is a huge issue here in California. And so whether you care about viruses or not, you should care about indoor air quality at your school because your kids go off to school and then whatever the air quality is in the room, it is in the room. And then they go out at recess if your schools don't have an indoor air quality or spare the air policy. So you don't know if your kids are like having to go out and do PE in like really toxic weather or whatever. And then you don't know if once they're inside or having lunch or whatever, if the air quality is consistent between their classroom, the bathroom, the library, the multi-purpose room, etc. Right? I understand that people are concerned about money, but the math on this ain't mathin' for me because having all of these kids getting repeatedly ill with an illness that is shown to increase your chances of a debilitating condition called long COVID or PASC is off the charts. We're just going to sort of like see what happens here. Like, this is a horrible idea for our economy, an absolutely horrible idea for the health of our citizens and our children because these kids are getting their parents sick who are getting other community members sick. This is wild. So why don't we stem the tide right there? The math ain't mathin' on this is too expensive. I mean, it's the cost of like a coffee at Starbucks by the end of the year. And these filter boxes you can set up, and of course the Rosenthal cubes, same thing. DIY air purifiers push more air, more clean air into these classrooms than a commercially available one. And you can pay for commercial ones too if you want to do that. But we need central HVAC and we need air purifiers. So how do we get them, right? West Coast Health Alliance. Is there anything that you can do here? Can you mandate clean indoor air for classrooms? Can you require insurers to pay for portable air purifiers for children that are on the CDC's high risk list? Like, I don't understand why it is that we're just continuing to let politicians and insurance companies and schools skate by as our kids are getting repeatedly infected with COVID if they're in schools, or RSV or flu. Like, and this is impacting their brain health. So I went on my little diatribe here. West Coast Health Alliance, thank you for advocating for vaccines. Thank you for pushing hard. It's time to do something about the clean air, people.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in there. You were on a roll. That I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Why? Why? Just tell me why. Maybe it's worth it, Lisa. Maybe when they tell you why, you'd be like, "Oh, sure. Okay, that makes sense." But I kind of suspect that's not the case.
Well, and you have all these people on Twitter and like other platforms being like, it's a call, it's a call. I'm like, I don't think it's a call. I don't think they meaningfully trying to call people to like
Oh,
limit the
Jesus.
social
Oh God.
security thing. What I think is happening here is that a bunch of
That's so
people are a little too
stupid.
timid about what science is showing them. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but if it's not 100% perfect, we don't want to do it. You know what? Something is better than nothing at this point.
Well,
But building code ain't cutting it.
this is one of the things that's driven me crazy about we've had 5 years to sort of understand risk mitigation. And basically everybody who's like I've had a fun beef with on X, about masks, for example, they all seem to think of it as like a zero sum game, and it's really like, again, me being curious about what's in people's psychology, what's in their mind about this. They're perceiving risk management as being completely binary, you know? And to some degree, I sort of empathize a little bit in that the result sort of is you either get sick or you don't, but your like exposure probability is what you're playing with, and so like yeah, as I encounter resistance, that is one of the things, and yeah, I mean, the answer is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? So um, yeah, I don't have time or patience for the whole like call CULL in case you're watching this and you didn't like pick that up, but that there's like the people that are like they're
There's
gonna
all
kill
these
they're
people out there, and
yeah,
people
I'm
have
just like, wow, dude, you have a
all
lot
sorts
of
of
time on your
ideas.
hands for that much stupid. Like, congratulations. I mean, I was dropped on my head when I was a baby, but like, man, that's just a whole nother level, dude.
I need public health to do what's right for these kids, and it is just not happening.
Yeah. I think two things in response to that. One is, and this is just a life lesson, people, but caring is not just a feeling that you have. There are actions and behaviors that you do in reality that may even be hard for you. They may be expensive, they may be costly, but that's what it means. That's what caring is. So when people say they care and they don't do anything, they don't care, right? They're lying to themselves, and they may have emotions that they experience that I care, but they're not actually doing things in reality to change a result. So
It is
when
performative.
it's totally performative. The other point that I think you made before that I really enjoyed, that I just want to resurface, is that you're kind of one of the points of school, in science, and what makes civilization work to some degree is science. Science is like a predictor. Like, you do science because it predicts things, right? That's what science is. It's like it predicts things in reality. And if the reality doesn't match up, then your theory is wrong. Well, you're sending your kids to a place where they're teaching them science. It's not like a nice to know, like, oh, hey, there's this thing, science. Like, they take it seriously when they teach it and they make your kids learn it, but then they themselves just ignore it completely. And I think that disconnect is so like fucking weird, that they're teaching you that like science is this critical thing you need to know, but then they're just completely like, you're just like, what? Like, it's very disturbing. And I can remember being a kid, and having these experiences with adults where I would see these things and be like, wow. And it really destroyed my trust in adults, where I'd be like, wait a second, you're like, this class is so important that if I get a bad grade, it's going to be really bad. But at the same time, like, you don't even like, we know at this point this thing is airborne and we can put in things and you're just literally not doing it. And you just because, and like, what is that? Like, what is that when you're a
Well, I mean,
kid?
I'm probably gonna get some heat for this, but I mean, I grew up as a kid raised Catholic. I went to CCD, which is the religious education, every Tuesday. And as I was in high school, a lot of the stuff that was happening with abuse in the church was coming out in the open, high school and college. I went to a Catholic college.
Oof.
The college is Catholic college, and it really nagged at me. Like, justice in this world for children is something that I feel very strongly about, and I think people
Yeah.
who do not feel strongly about that have some serious skeletons in their closet and things they need to work on in therapy, because you cannot look at a kid who has absolutely zero agency in this world and say to me that you don't think the world should be doing something right for that kid. Like, if you see something going wrong, you need to say something. And I'm saying something to every parent in California right now. I am seeing something wrong. I've said this to a lot of politicians. I am seeing something wrong. We all need to be saying this. It is long past time, and money is not an object when it comes to long term health, because keep in mind that these kids are going to be the people who fuel our economy in 15, 20 years, right? Like
Yeah.
little ones. And so, if we want kids to not have brain damage, because we know COVID causes brain damage, and I know it's not a popular thought, but it's the truth. There are enough studies now that are showing the cognitive damage that is done by repeat COVID infections, that this is not something that you want kids getting over and over and over again. Idiocracy, the movie, should not be a documentary, right? It should not. And it feels like it is. And
Ugh.
I just don't understand here. Another thing that really drives me nuts is that in this country, even if you want to put masks, respirators on your kids, there is no way to get your child fit tested for a respirator unless you do it
Nope.
yourself. There is no respiratory standard of protection for children in this country. It is wild. So NIOSH, which is under the CDC, which is part of the Human Health and Human Services Division of the government, NIOSH has been decimated. They are the ones who figure out what the occupational health and safety measures are and how to measure masks, respirators, to see how much stuff they filter out, to help people with fit testing, to come up with fit testing protocols. But you can't hire a company to fit test a kid because kids aren't supposed to be working at a certain age. And there are
That's the
no,
reason why?
because NIOSH is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health.
Right, right. I never thought
And it's
about
not
that.
about
Yeah, you're
children.
totally right.
It's
Yeah.
about teachers, it's about doctors, it's about anyone in an environment where they're going to be, industrial work, contractors, people who are around nasty stuff. But it's not about kids. In America, you can't buy an American-made respirator for your child that has passed a standard, a regulatory standard that will keep them safe and healthy. Uh, so
Here's Lisa, here's what's really crazy is we're in California. You know what's in California? Fucking forest fires. Like I like all the time. Like if you like people if you're not from California and you're watching this and it's hard to sort of comprehend, like I have we know people who've lost their houses, like total losses, burnt. Like we know multiple people in my family and like friends of friends and stuff like that. Like this is a real thing. And sometimes, and if you have no experience and you're just like, just listening to this, like the air will be like filled with smoke and it's crazy. So just pathogens aside, like California, and this is not getting better. Like it's like like this year is going to be the best, more or less. Like the trend line is clearly going one direction. We're like this year is going to be the best it's ever going to be. Next year is going to be the best. It's like right, it keeps getting worse progressively, and like you would think that in California, having smoke be a huge environmental concern. They'd be like, we just need to invest whatever California resources, just produce respirators for kids, or for everybody, fine. But like to your point, when I really appreciated this, and I was like, oh, we should just have some protection just for like our go bag for like forest fires and stuff because we're like kind of in the woods, and so we've got like full on smoke protection stuff. And I was like, oh, let me just look for one for my son who's like 3, and I'll just buy that. And I was looking, I was like, I having a hard time finding this thing. And then I just kind of like was circling the drain for a while before I like plunged all the way in. And I was like, oh my God, they don't exist.
like right now, there's only like 3 different types of masks that I can get for my kids that are like that. Anyway, I think that public health's job should be to keep the public healthy, not to appease Gavin Newsom, not to appease Donald Trump, not to appease anyone in between, but to literally make sure that people have the tools to let the people know what the best science says, and they'll make sure people have access to the tools to keep themselves healthy and to grow,
Yeah.
to become adults who are healthy, for children to become adults who are healthy. Um, you know,
Yeah. That's their job.
that's her job.
Yeah.
And
That's what they signed up for.
yeah, and I think about like the autism thing, which is a popular topic. And I think about all the children who have autism. And this is a growing concern for the government. For these children with really difficult disabilities, it's worse. And a lot of
Yeah.
these individuals cannot wear respirators, they cannot wear masks. And yet, these are the kids who are going to benefit the most from it, from an in-person education. They are being put in classrooms with teachers who don't want to wear any sort of respiratory protection, even if it's a clear faced front, so that the kids who lip read can see what's going on. Um, they're being put in classrooms that don't even meet the minimum levels recommended by California Department of Public Health for indoor air quality. And we are expected to think that that's okay. None of this is medically okay for any of those kids. We cannot do this to our children. And even if it turns out that, and I don't think it is because the mechanisms are there, that we are entirely wrong, and that all of this was this big misunderstanding, and we're waking up from this and it was all a bad dream. What is the harm in just cleaning the air to a standard that is reasonable?
Tell me the downside.
Show me the downside.
I
I could say the
yeah,
downside right now of doing nothing
yeah,
is huge.
yeah. It's a classic asymmetric payoff as far as I can tell, but I don't know. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
dive deeper on all this stuff with you, and I am super
yeah,
excited that we're starting this podcast. I know that you've
yes.
been watching this for a while, and it's getting late. So maybe we
I'm
should
I'm
wrap
getting
this up.
pumped. We're gonna have some guests on. If you're watching this, listening, drop us some comments wherever you find this. Share it. Let us know what you want to hear about. And we will have some experts on. If you have an expert that you want to hear from and some questions like this, that's why we're doing this. We want to bring on some people and ask normal person questions from experts, just really get to the bottom of a lot of stuff. So yeah, this is super fun and I am pumped.
Yeah, and if you're a kid who wants to do something, contact us because I think there's a lot that we can do with the power of
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
Um,
If you're in school and you want to talk about this, we would love to have you on this podcast and talk to you about what it's like and how we can help. Yeah,
awesome.
cool.
Thanks, Sarah.
Well,
Looking
have a
forward to
good
seeing
dinner
you
with your
again soon.
kids. I'm trying to figure out what's for dinner tonight.
Yep,
I think mine's gonna wake up from a nap any minute. He's gonna want to play. So, life of a parent.
that's right. Good night.
Okay, good night.